Hello and welcome to Beyond the GPA's video series, Preparing to Launch. I'm Anna Maria Wenner.
And I'm Maura Mulligan.
And today we're going to do an overview of accessibility services. And for those with high school students, that means an IEP or a 504 in the high school environment. And Maura, I'm really interested in hearing the information that you have to share, because so often parents and students think that an IEP or a 504 will translate or transition to college one for one. And from what I have experienced in my years in college is that that's not necessarily true. The requirements of a college is obviously to help a student be successful, but there's definitely different nuances that is really important for students and parents in high school to know. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Anna Maria. And I think that's a great point. And I think it's, we want to be really clear that there absolutely are accommodations at the college level, and many of them are similar to accommodations that happen at a high school level, at a K-12 level, related to 504s and IEPs, but it's not exactly the same. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it falls under different laws. And once students get to college, the legal guidance there is ADA. And so it's different. So K-12 is required, right? As a country, we are required to have students have every support possible to get them to graduation. And for some students, that looks very different than others. College is a bit different. And so there is a different focus on academic ability and integrity at many schools, and not all. There are definitely some colleges and universities that have very specific programs for students with more significant disabilities that they can assist them in programs. But the vast majority of colleges and universities don't have a specialized program. They do have accommodations, and schools are required to meet that by law, and many are incredibly committed to being able to serve students with disabilities to make sure they have kind of their needs met. And yet there's still a little bit of a difference. And so, for some families, I think one of the biggest things that I've seen over the years that's a challenge for people is modified curriculums. And I would say that's something that tends to happen more in K-12, and that is an accommodation that is more likely to be challenged. So I don't want to say that won't happen at a college level, but those are sometimes not able to be accommodated in the same way because of the academic integrity of a professional field that a student may be entering into. So all of this means you really should be talking as you're going to open houses and you're having tours. If you have a student on a 504 or an IEP, it's really a great conversation to be having along the way, which is sort of what sort of accommodations can your school or can this program accommodate? And while they should be similar at most schools because it's ADA laws and everyone is following those, some schools, like I said, are better able to do that than others, depending on if they have a specialized program. And I think a great way for families to begin to prep for that this year, if nothing else, even outside of what the specific accommodations might be, is to have the student really take ownership for knowing sort of what is, why are they on a 504 or an IEP? Do they know their diagnosis? Are they able to articulate what accommodations are in place for them? Do they know what those are? And do they know what's worked for them? And so I think those are some of the biggest pieces on that, rather than getting into the specifics of each of the accommodations. I will say universally, those are things that students will need as they're entering college, because as they begin to meet with their accessibility services departments at the college level, sometimes parents might be in that first meeting, but for the most part, the student will be the person self-advocating and asking for those accommodations. They'll be the ones alerting someone on campus if there's a challenge with that. And that's really different for families who maybe haven't even had the child involved in some of those meetings in the K-12 timeframe. So I would say a great focus for this year is sort of asking those questions as you're having tours, But really being, making sure you educate yourself on exactly what is required and what isn't, and making sure that your student knows exactly what they need and why, so they can advocate for themselves when they get there. Because, a student may say, like, I don't have a lot of accommodations, or no, I didn't need anything. And it turns out in talking maybe with the family member that there were a lot of things in place that the student maybe wasn't aware of. That's going to be really hard if they're at college and universities and they're sort of handling that on their own. If they don't sort of know, hey, I need extended time. This is how it works. This is the office I go to. This is what I need to say. So I think, that kind of independence during senior year of them really taking ownership for knowing what they need or maybe what they don't need. Sometimes there are accommodations that have been in place since elementary school that are kind of on the books, so to speak, but you talk to a student, they're sort of saying, like, I haven't used that in years. So it's a great time to sort of tease out, like, hey, as you're entering into college and it's different academic work, do we need to be prepared for revisiting that and maybe having that accommodation come back at least for the first semester to make sure that you have enough support or not. And so really making sure that you're kind of aware of what that student needs. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have a student who is trying to sort of navigate this process at the college level, if you're worried about sort of how that process will go, you feel like your family could use some additional support, please reach out to us. We've worked a lot with students at college level for many years around accommodations and are happy to talk with you more at Beyond the GPA. So please reach out to us if we can help. Thank you.